It is indeed a sad day to see a company like Gunns in a situation where effectively their time as a Tasmanian company will come to an end. What I do want to say, however, is that this does not mean that the pulp mill project itself is dead. And in fact, I would say to people, be very careful about dancing on the grave, Mr Speaker, because the fact is the resource still exists. The fact is the proposal still exists. And, Mr Speaker, this demise of this company, unfortunate demise of this company, may in fact mean that other proponents come forward. So let's not believe, Mr Speaker, that today means the end of the pulp mill project. But, Mr Speaker, what this shows is the pressure on the forest industry is real. Now, Mr Hodgman, the honourable member, the honourable leader of the opposition, just a couple of weeks ago tried to say that Gunns was somehow different from the rest of the forest industry. And in fact, he refused to comment on the internal commercial issues surrounding Gunns. He basically said, "I'm not here." In fact, I've got the direct quote here where he says, the issue for Gunns and how they deal with their commercial operations is a matter for them, and I'm not going to comment on that, he said. So he wasn't interested a couple of weeks ago when it was put to him by journalists, that in fact what's happening with Gunns is an example of what's happening to many different companies in the forest industry. And he tried to somehow deny this and say that Gunns is different, Gunns is separate, Gunns is special, and I'm not going to comment on Gunns. Well, the reality is what's happening to Gunns is an example of what's happening to many Tasmanian businesses. And what's happening to those businesses is affecting our own forestry Tasmania, Mr Speaker. And the people who are sitting up here, Mr Speaker, would know that over the past couple of years they have seen their work colleagues lose their jobs at Forestry Tasmania. Over 200 jobs have already been lost from Forestry Tasmania. And, Mr Speaker, the whole reason why we went through the URS strategic review— no, it's not. No, it's not. It's called the High Australian Dollar. It's called the High Australian Dollar. This just goes to show the naivety of the opposition. And the fact, you see the evidence yourselves here today. What you see here today is a denial of the reality of what's happening around the world. What you see is evidence that the Liberal Party will not tell you the truth. They will never tell you the truth. Mr Speaker, I've just come back from Vietnam, and I have sat there and I've talked to people involved in the forest industry in Vietnam, because we live in a world global economy, Mr Giddings, member for Lions. We are affected by what's happening around the world. Now, they have in Vietnam a plantation-based forest industry, Mr Speaker, and interestingly, not only is their forest industry plantation-based, but it's plantation-based on eucalypts and acacia, Australian species. They are able to grow those species in a more efficient way, Mr Speaker. They have, whether we like it or not, lower labour costs. They also have the benefit of the exchange rate that's working for them. We've got it working against us. So the reality is there's change upon us, whether we like it or not. We can't keep looking to the past. Now, Labor has a record, Mr Speaker, of grasping reform and making it happen for the better of the state. Now, people don't always understand it at the time that we're going through it, particularly when it's painful, but we look people in the eye and we tell them how it is. Unlike you, and you've just evidenced it today, in denying what's going on around the world in forestry, denying the fact that Forestry Tasmania are under financial pressure themselves. In fact, the whole reason why we started the strategic review was because we've got evidence that Forestry Tasmania's business model is unsustainable, including the very weak revenue outlook for Forestry Tasmania, its deteriorating cash position, and that Forestry Tasmania would not be able to continue to fund the non-commercial activities it undertakes. So, Mr Speaker, we know this is a reality, and the evidence today with guns going into administration and effectively being sold now is further evidence of what's happening in our forest industry.
Order.
And it's further evidence of why the IGA process we're undertaking is so important. So important. And in fact, I recognise the leadership that's been shown by people like Vicar Bailey today and Phil Pullinger, who've written to Taran, Mr Speaker, as part of the IGA process to customers. And it's actually caused a problem within the Green movement, Mr Speaker, because the faith is there around the IGA process to try to find a way through these problems.
I won't keep cautioning members. If you can persistently keep interjecting, you'll go out for the rest of question time. The Honourable Leader.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Now, none of these people are easy bedfellows for any one of us, but we're trying to find a way through a problem that is far greater than Tasmania, but is affecting Tasmanians. Tasmanians are losing their jobs in the forest industry, and under you lot it would get worse because you just put your head in the sand and pretend it would all go away.
Next question, the Leader of the Opposition.